What is Bigfoot? A myth? A legend? A hoax? Or a real flesh and blood creature? What about the reported sightings of Bigfoot? They can't all be misidentified animals. And how is it that most Native American cultures have stories about Bigfoot? After 2 separate sightings of a Bigfoot-type creature, I needed answers. I have now been researching Bigfoot for over 15 years, and I feel that my journey has just begun.
Hi, today we're in the little town of Wadley, Alabama, right here on the banks of the Tallapoosa River. And it's not a whole lot here now. Most of the businesses are closed, but there is one manufacturing plant and Southern Union Community College here. And what we're going to talk about today is what happened here back in 1971. Now, I know that was a long time ago, but it's still an interesting story. So there were several sightings of what they called a giant monkey around the little town of Wadley. And it all started at a little place, a little church called Pleasant Grove. So let's head that way right now and I'll give you a layout of what happened. We're now at the Pleasant Grove Baptist Church on the outskirts of Wadley on Highway 77. This is where a majority of the Bigfoot sightings happened. So what was going on is back in that time there was a school right behind the church, and the police would have to go by that school 2 or 3 times a night, and they had a detached clock that they had to hit every time they went through. A detached clock's just a clock that's about this big around. You stick a key in it, you turn it a couple of times, and it's got a little paper disc in it that marks where you were, when you were there, and all that. So they had to hit that to make their rounds of a night. They were checking out the school. So as they're riding around this school one night, their headlights on the cop car actually illuminated something on the roof of this place, and they thought, well, that's a buzzard or something. Well, they took the spotlight and they shined it on it, and what they called a giant monkey was standing on top of the building. Well, it run to the other end of the school and jumped off of the roof right in front of the cop car. And that was the first sighting they had of a Bigfoot. Now the cop who was in the car and his ride-along buddy at that time, they went back to Wadley, they talked about it, they told about it, but nobody really believed them. But who can say that you would really believe somebody talking like that? The second sighting happened a few weeks later. Right here where we're parked, a policeman was sitting here watching traffic come into Wadley. Like I said before, there was a college over here, there was a manufacturing, there was 2 manufacturing plants here. So it was a pretty busy place to be. So the cop was sitting here watching traffic, looking for speeders. And as he was sitting there in his car, he looked in his rearview mirror, and coming up the side of the church, not in a run, but in a sort of a real serious walk, this giant monkey was walking toward his cop car. Well, the cop turned around and looked so he could see it with his own eyes, not in a reflection. He looked and seen it, and it was done halfway to his car by the time he got it crunk up and he got out of there. Now, they said, I don't really know, I probably would have done the same thing. He left black marks on the road when he pulled out of there. If anybody was speeding that day, it was him. So we rock on to another couple of weeks later. Well, actually, this was a couple of days after that happened. A boy was coming out of Robert Street going to the school. Robert Street is the street right behind the sign that you can see, a little bit of the Southern Union sign. You see the road real good from right here. But he was coming out of Robert Street and he saw a Bigfoot coming out of the woods on the other side of the church. He saw the Bigfoot coming out from right in that little area right there. Well, after that, he come out of school. He went back to the school, started talking about it, and him and some of his buddies jumped in their vehicle and come up here to the church where they saw the Bigfoot coming across the highway. They found footprints and everything, but at the time they didn't think to take pictures of it. I mean, you know, everybody didn't have a camera back then. It wasn't like it is now, where you got a phone that's got a camera, a video recorder, and you can talk to somebody halfway across the world. It wasn't like that back then. So they didn't have a camera, they didn't take pictures or nothing like that. But they did find footprints going through this little church area, going back toward the school. So that is the third sighting of a Bigfoot right there. Now with the Bigfoot coming out of the woods back there, I actually don't know the person who owns the land, and we're fixing to go back there for a little bit and look around. Do we expect to find anything? No, we really don't. But we're going to walk back there and give you an idea of what the lay of the land was. There is a pond back there that people said that the Bigfoot was staying around it. Other people say the Bigfoot was staying in that old school, because at that time the school wasn't being used for nothing but storage for other agricultural stuff and stuff from home ec classes that wasn't being used at the time. And they actually, a few years later, one man went back there into the school building while he was out on a hunting trip. He went to the school building and looked in a window and saw what he thought was a big bed laid off in the corner, made out of leaves and a pine straw and stuff like that, and there were bones laying on the floor. But back then, everybody didn't have a cell phone on them, they didn't have a camera on them, and so he didn't get pictures of it. But that is the story of the giant ape in Wadley, Alabama. Another sighting that happened over here in Wadley, we're just about less than a half a mile from where we was at the church. Right here, there was an old house that had a big oak tree in the front yard at one time. Well, these hunters were out hunting, and they were running dogs back then. And the dogs got a hold of the trail of a Bigfoot. Chased it across the road. As the man come through here, he saw his dogs running across the road, and he pulled up here on the side of the road, and he looked up there at the old house that was standing there. And up in an oak tree was a giant monkey again. Now these dogs had done treed that giant monkey. Said that by the time the man had regained his composure about what was going on, and he started to step out of his truck, the Bigfoot jumped out of the tree, swatted a couple of the dogs, killing 2 or 3 of them. I don't know which it was. It's 2 different stories. But he killed a couple of the dogs and took on off up that way. He was going away from the church. So a lot of people believe that he was living in that school behind the church, so he took off that way, away from the school. But that was a very interesting story for me to hear. So I thought I would add it into this video about the Wadley giant ape, or giant monkey. All right, as of now, we're out here in the woods across the road from the church. Friend of mine owns this land, and he's done a little bit of cleaning up around here. He's got a couple of little trails going through here that you can ride on his 4-wheeler on. But there is a pond and a creek on this land, so it's very feasible that a Bigfoot would be in this area. So everything about these stories could very much ring true. I have not, as of yet, found anybody who actually saw it. But that was 1971. Anybody who would have been of any age to have seen something like that and remembered it, they'd be pretty old right now. So that's nothing unusual. But the stories were very intriguing. because every once in a while we still get reports from around this area. Screams and screams that they hear, stuff like that. Wadley's not that big of a town, so when something happens, pretty much everybody knows what happened. But it's a nice little place out here in the woods right here, and I can believe that a Bigfoot would have been in some of these woods right here. Like I said, there's a little creek down here, there's a pond down here. If you want to hear more about this story about the Wadley Bigfoot or giant monkey, go to the Alabama Bigfoot Society YouTube channel. It was run by Sasquatch Jim, or Jim Smith as he was known. And he has since passed away, but he was big on trying to find the Bigfoot. Now we have stuff like this right here happening all the time. It's nothing unusual to find a tree like this right here in this area. So let's see, they're broken about waist high, straight across. And this right here is right here at this creek. Oh, let's see. Yeah, this is right here at this creek. But this is I can't say that was Bigfoot related, but now if I talk to the man who owns this land and he tells me that he didn't do it, then I'll start considering. But he rides four-wheelers up through here sometimes, and he might have done that himself. You had to be careful about stuff like that. But this would be a nice place for a Bigfoot to hang out. That's for sure. It's nice, quiet, right on the edge of town. You still hear vehicles on the highway right there. And it's got a nice little creek right here that pretty much always got water in it. I've very seldom seen it empty. Like I said, we've been down here quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 years. But that is the story of the Wadley giant ape, or giant monkey, whichever it was that they called it. And you just got to remember, this was before Bigfoot was everywhere. You know, like on ads for TV stuff, products and everything. Now we got Bigfoot on everything. So if somebody has seen something like that back then and knowed what we know now, they'd have known it was a Bigfoot. But beef jerky and other things like that didn't use Bigfoot for advertisement back then. But I think it's very interesting that they call it a giant monkey instead of anything else. They didn't actually call it a wild man or nothing like that. They called it a giant monkey. So that sort of makes me wonder a little bit about how everybody come to the conclusion that it was a giant monkey, which really is not that far off look wise. But if you like this video and you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. We're doing what we can when we can. But I'm going to get back up here, rest a little bit, and then head to the house. Y'all have a good one, and we'll catch you on the next video. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, Please like and subscribe.
And tell your friends.
Also find us on Facebook, Alabama Georgia Bigfoot Research Group.